Well, the good news is the road trip is over and the Kraken get to come home for two very needed days of rest before they start their homestand against the Maple Leafs. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where the Seattle Kraken lose their third straight 4-2 in Edmonton to finish off this road trip as the Oilers improve to their 12th straight win. And for the Kraken, it's another unfortunate game, but they're still not fully healthy, either illness-wise or injuries. Both, well, Benier's on IR, obviously, but Dunn's still out in this one. They do get Burakovsky back, which is nice, but yeah, in the end, it just wasn't enough to beat the Oilers in this game. Oh, and real quick, one correction from the last R&R. I did say in the beginning of that one that it was the same group of skaters in that game against the Rangers as the game previous against the Penguins, which was mostly true, with the one exception of John Hayden playing his first game for the Kraken, getting called up from the AHL level when the Kraken put Beniers on the IR. Otherwise, same group of skaters, and then in this game, it's again the same group, although Burakovsky is back in place of John Hayden, and he did start the game on that same fourth line that's kind of been the moving pieces line here with the different injuries and illnesses the team have been going through of late, but he did, over the course of the game, move up to the second line where he's probably going to find his home long-term, assuming he stays healthy long-term, which, based on how his season's gone so far, is quite the assumption. Other than that, it was once again Joey Daccord back in net for the Kraken, and as we jump right into the game, early on it became pretty obvious that for the second time in 3 games, this was going to be a game where the officiating was not going to favor the Kraken, in fact, favor their opponent. Though, at least this time, it's not favoring them in the same way that it did the Penguins, where it's just a ton of blatantly terrible calls and one-sided officiating in the Penguins' favor, and more so in the way that it was just going to be a very tightly officiated game with lots of penalties, and well, when you're playing the Oilers, pretty much regardless of who you are, you pretty much know which team's going to have the better power play, and sure enough, the Oilers were able to take advantage of a couple of theirs where the Kraken went 0 for 6, I think, on the power play. And in the end, that is the difference in this game. And that all gets started pretty early on as the Kraken get on a power play within the first couple of minutes. A power play that they really don't ever get much of anything going on. So we get back to 5-on-5, and it's not long before the Oilers are on a power play. A power play for them that only lasts a few seconds as McDavid ends up taking a hooking call, I think it was, on Tanev, as Tanev's trying to clear a puck, so we're to 4-on-4. And as we come out of 4-on-4, the 2 boxes empty. Right back at 5-on-5, the Kraken get a rush chance the other way as Tolvanen set loose on a breakaway. He skates in and buries it into the back of the net past Skinner to give the Kraken the 1-0 lead. Their first early lead in quite a while now, or at least a few games, certainly since the winning streak came to an end. And for the Kraken, it's off to a good start, but they send the Oilers right back to another power play not long after. Power play that nearly scores a couple of times for the Oilers. It's a pretty dangerous one. Daccord comes up with a couple of nice saves, but eventually the Kraken are able to kill it off. And just as they kill it off, it's a beautiful passing play from the Kraken right out of their end of the ice through the neutral zone, tic-tac-toeing its way down the ice, eventually setting McCann loose for a one-on-one the last few feet up to the net. He skates in and buries it himself into that back of the net as well, giving the Kraken the 2-0 lead for McCann, his 18th of the season, and the Kraken are off to the races here early on with that multi-goal lead. And just to be clear with this one, it's not like McCann was the guy in the box for the Kraken that comes out and gets set loose on the breakaway. We do see that a few times over the course of an NHL season. No, it was actually Larson in the box for the Kraken here, and he did get put there off of a call that was complete BS. It's just completely fabricated by the officials. I think they put him in there for boarding, but there is hardly anything whatsoever on this call. Either way, the Kraken survive that power play, get this rush chance down the ice, which is started by Gord in the offensive end. He gets it up to Eberle in the neutral zone, and then Eberle just gets a nice little dunk pass over to McCann as they get into the offensive end. McCann then skates in and finishes it. So the Kraken, a 2-0 lead, and with no more special teams the rest of this period, we get to that first intermission with the Kraken holding that 2-0 lead, which is a great start and would have been fantastic had the game ended after 20 minutes, but unfortunately there's still 40 minutes left, and early on in the second period, within the first minute, in fact, I think it's somewhere around 37 seconds into the second period, the Oilers get into the Kraken end of the ice. It's Draisaitl with a spinning shot from a tight angle, which Daccord does make a save on, but it rebounds out to Foegele, who gets the shot off, and while Daccord nearly gets back for the spectacular save, it just leaks through him into the net to bring the Oilers back to within 1. Then the Kraken get another power play that they really don't do much with. Then the Oilers get a power play, and on that power play, still less than 5 minutes into the second period, they tie things up. It's Draisaitl off of another rebound this time. He's the one receiving the rebound. And off of the goal line, or actually just below the goal line, he banks it off of Daccord as Daccord's trying to come back to the net. and it goes off Decord into the net to give the Oilers their second goal and tie this game at 2 still early in the second period. Following the Oilers' power play goal, though, the Kraken nearly respond back the other way to get the lead right back, but a pass right in front of Skinner doesn't connect to Gord on the far side for what would have been an easy tap-in. It ends up going to the corner harmlessly, and the Oilers survive that, eventually creating some momentum, and then it's a breakaway for Foegele a couple minutes later that he skates in and puts past Decord to give the Oilers the 3-0 lead, still not even close to the halfway point of this second period. And as we get into the back half of the second period, the Kraken get a couple of shifts back-to-back of constant offensive zone pressure. Great offense from the Kraken, trapping the, I think it was McDavid line, out on the ice for a good long time for the Oilers. And with this being the second period, the bench is farther away. They just were not able to get off the ice, as the Kraken do roll at least one change in this time, getting a couple shots on goal. Skinner's able to make all of the saves, but the Kraken get to all the rebounds, circle the puck, get another shot off, get another shot off. Eventually, the Oilers are able to get the puck, clear it down to the other end of the ice, and do a good job of putting it on net to avoid the icing and continuing that shift for the McDavid line. But as it goes right to Decord, Decord does what he does best, stands right up with the puck, fires off a pass right up to the far blue line to Wennberg, who has not come off the ice. Wennberg into the offensive end, gets up to the net, fires off a shot and buries it to tie the game at 3, as Decord gets the primary assist, and the Kraken are right back even thanks to the... I mean, it wasn't a bad time to take a change by the Oilers. They desperately needed it, but thanks to Decord's active stick, the Kraken have tied things up. Or at least we thought the game was going to be tied up, right up until Edmonton challenges for offside, and in general, with an offside challenge, you pretty much know how it's going to go, especially when it's a challenge that goes against the Kraken. You always know that's getting overturned. And sure enough, technically, by the letter of the law, Yamamoto is offside. He's going off for a change, but he does cross the blue line, with it being the second period and the Kraken bench in front of the offensive end. He crosses the blue line to go for that change right before Wennberg takes the puck into the offensive end. So it's offside. It doesn't affect the play in any way whatsoever, but technically by the rule, it is offside. The goal comes back, and we end up going through the rest of the second period without any more real meaningful action. So the Kraken have their 2-period first responded to by a 3-period second for the Oilers. And unfortunately, that disallowed Wennberg goal would be the closest the Kraken would get to evening this thing up and trying to get it to overtime, as in the third period, the Oilers do a pretty good job of playing defense and not allowing the Kraken to get much of anything going offensively. And yes, you heard me correctly, the Oilers played good defense, something that they've finally figured out how to do here in this winning streak for them. Similar way the Kraken got their 9-game winning streak, just suddenly figuring out that they could play good defense, though it's a little bit more of a rare thing from the Oilers, just in general over their history. Either way, they do a good job of limiting the Kraken offensive chances in this third period. Eventually, the Kraken do get another power play, which does look very good, easily their best power play of the night, but once again, unable to score. And eventually we get into the final few minutes where the chaos really starts to erupt. It all starts with about 3.5 minutes left, so getting pretty close to when you're thinking about pulling Decord to get the empty net or the 6-on-5 chance for the Kraken to tie things up and send it to overtime. But Gord, with 3.5 minutes left, chasing a puck in on the forward check, catches Ekholm a little bit up high with a big hit along the boards. Ekholm definitely embellishes this a bit as he just holds his face and spins around in circles. Woe is Ekholm as he gets grazed on the chin by the Gord hit. And it looks like he's just taken a massive hit to the face right up until the whistle's blown. And then, oh yeah, he's perfectly healthy and ready to go right at Gord in front of the net. So, you know, injured for the play, alive for the whistle. Either way, in the end, it's Ekholm to the box for 2 minutes for roughing against Gord, and Gord to the box for a 5-minute major for, eventually they call it charging on Gord. And I gotta say, again, technically, by the letter of the law, I can see the argument for the 5-minute major. Gord does sort of leave his feet. I mean, he kind of has to, being his height and Ekholm's height difference. He kind of had to leave his feet a little bit to get to Ekholm, and he does catch him a little bit up high, just barely grazing his chin with the shoulder. But again, technically by the letter of the law, and they had been calling this game pretty tight, there is an argument there. But even with all that being said, and I understand this will probably sound like a bit of a homer take and maybe some sour grapes based on the outcome of the game, I guarantee if the roles are reversed at the same stage of the game and maybe even the same score flipped, if this is a Larson for the Kraken taking a hit up high from, I don't know, Foegele in the Kraken end of the ice, I guarantee this is not a 5-minute major. maybe a 2-minute minor, and maybe they call it a 5-minute major and then downgrade it to a 2-minute minor, which we have seen on a number of occasions. Pretty much anytime a major is called against the Kraken, it gets downgraded to a 2-minute minor. Heck, the play that knocked McCann out of the playoffs for a good chunk of time had that exact same thing happen. Heck, last season, when Schwartz took the hit up high from Lombard in the game against Florida, that knocked him out to concussion protocol for another couple of games. Lombard doesn't even get 2 minutes in that game. So yeah, I have a hard time seeing a hit that doesn't even come close to injuring Ekholm being a 5-minute major. Still, in the end, this is a very tightly called game, and they call this one very tight. It ends up being that 5-minute major against Gord. He leaves the game, and with still the 2-minute minor against Ekholm, it now means that the Oilers effectively get a 3-minute major with 3.5 minutes left in the game, which basically kills it. The Oilers do end up scoring midway through that 3-minute major. It's a pass right across Joey's face in the crease. He doesn't have any chance on it. I think it's Hyman that puts that one in on the power play. So the Oilers pick up their second power play goal, and the Kraken obviously aren't going to come back from 2 goals down with 30 seconds left. So the Oilers win this one 4-2, missing a couple of empty netters. The Kraken did still go empty net with 30 seconds left. The Oilers missed the empty net a couple of times or don't get it to the net in one occasion. The Kraken dropped their third straight, finishing off the road trip with 3 straight losses after beginning the road trip with 3 straight wins, continuing 6 wins coming into it. So yeah, that's the 9-game winning streak. It's a road trip that kind of gets embodied in this game. The Kraken get off to a great start, get those 2 goals, 3 wins to start the road trip. But then things kind of come apart in the second period and they just fade down the stretch, with the Oilers getting 3 goals in the second pretty early on, and the Kraken obviously losing the last 3 games of this road trip. Fortunately, they do get 2 days off now before coming back home for a homestand that starts against Toronto, and so for the third, maybe even 4th game in a row if you consider how well the Penguins have been playing lately. Another tough opponent for the Kraken in the Maple Leafs, but at the very least they will be coming into Seattle in the second half of a back-to-back, having played Vancouver the night before, so the Kraken might get Samsonov in net, although actually I wouldn't be surprised if they give Jones the net, considering it is his return to Seattle after having played here last year. If that's the case, it would be kind of fun to see Martin Jones back in net for the Kraken, or back in net in Climate Pledge Arena, not in net for the Kraken, obviously. Either way, the Kraken still do get the 2 days of rest and come back home for, yeah, it's definitely a much needed 2 days of rest, and I think they'll be happy to be back in their own beds for at least 1, if not 2 nights before that game happens. Then after that game, they get another 2 days rest before the schedule does lighten up for a couple of weeks with opponents like the Sharks, the Blue Jackets again. I think the Ducks are even in there. I haven't looked at it exactly, but it's a easier stretch for the Kraken coming out of that game against Toronto, which again gives them another chance to get things rolling back in the right direction, which they do need to do. Because, well, again, they did fight their way back into this wildcard hunt. They're still outside the playoffs, and it's a tight race right now between 4 or 5 teams for that second wildcard spot. And as far as that wildcard race is concerned, now that we're in the back half of the season, this loss does hurt a little bit more, as the Oilers are the team the Kraken are chasing in that second wildcard spot. Though with that being said, given how the Oilers are playing right now and how the Kings have been playing lately, I kind of have the feeling that it's going to be the Kings the Kraken are chasing for that second wildcard spot, or maybe the Predators. The Predators currently holding the first wildcard spot, and if they do end up falling off a little bit, then that could be the vulnerable one. Maybe 5 teams going from the Pacific. Either way, it's still a logjam, with the Kraken currently tied with the Flames. The Blues are hanging around, as well as the Coyotes, so yeah, it's going to be an interesting couple of months here, and the Kraken cannot afford to start going on another bit of a skid here with, well, 3 losses in a row already, but they certainly can't afford to have that get too much longer, especially with those easier opponents that you absolutely have to beat coming up on the schedule. As for this game specifically for the Kraken against the Oilers, I do think even in spite of the loss, it was another step in the right direction, coming off of that game that they really did not play very well against the Penguins. Even in spite of the horribly one-sided officiating, that was not a game the Kraken played well enough to win. And then I do think they took a step in the right direction against the Rangers, and now got even better in this game against the Oilers, certainly in the first period, but really all game long, the Kraken were playing pretty well, created pressure in the back half of the second period to try and even things up. Really should have evened things up, but the Oilers got a bit lucky with the Yamamoto offside. Either way, the Kraken do, and I think this coincides with them starting to get healthier, at least as far as the flu is concerned. It's nice to have Burakovsky back. Hopefully Dunn's back before too long. He's still listed as day-to-day and wasn't put on the IR like Beniers. Hopefully Beniers is back and not on the IR for too long. He has to be on it for, I think it's 10 days or maybe a week that he has to be on the IR. So, which I only point out, not because I know that he's going to be back soon or anything like that, but just to really clarify that the IR doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be out for an extended period of time like Burakovsky was at the start of the season or end of the season last year, or Belmar and Grubauer have now been for quite a while. Beniers could be back here before too much longer, in fact, during this next homestand, and hopefully that is the case, as the Kraken could definitely use that health back in their lineup, certainly for the game against Toronto if it works out that way, but also to really make sure they take advantage of the lighter schedule coming up after that game against the Leafs. Anyway, with that, let's move on to the Kraken 3 stars and close things out here. As always, with the Kraken 3 stars brought to you by the patrons over on Patreon. If you want to help decide these Kraken 3 stars after every Kraken game, you can help support the channel a little bit more than you already are by watching to this point by going to the link down below to Patreon and supporting over there. And with the 3 stars in this game, the first one for me has to be Jared McCann. He, again, was one of, if not the best Kraken player out on the ice this game, had a number of scoring opportunities in this game, scores on his first shot on goal with that partial breakaway. He gets in alone behind the defense and scores to give the Kraken the 2-0 lead, his 18th of the season. And as he's really started to heat up here of late after going through a little bit of a goal drought there, he's right back on track to be in that, well, not quite yet 40 goal conversation like he was last year, but if he keeps this up, he could get back into the hunt for another 40 goal season. Certainly 30 goals is well within his reach at this point. Second star, I mean, it's the low-hanging fruit, but I am going to go with Eli Tolvanen, has the first goal that gets the Kraken on the board, and he too has been building off with this goal. A fantastic road trip and really heated up here of late as well himself. And as for the third star, there are a few guys I could go with here, and I will pick a third star, but it's hard for me to decide who. Decor did have a pretty good game for the Kraken. I think he played better than his stats suggest. The fourth goal, second power play goal for the Oilers, does make his save percentage go below 900 for this one, which has been a rare thing for him this season. Still a couple of games where goals have gotten past him, even if they're not necessarily really his fault. It's just not something we were used to during the winning streak. Bjorkstrand has a nice assist on the Tolvanen goal. Eberle has a nice assist on the McCann goal. Both of them have been very good for the Kraken here in this last stretch. But in the end, I think I'm going to go with Riker Evans for the third star. He doesn't get on the scoring sheet, but he did have a couple of shots on goal, looked very good for the Kraken on the power play when he was out there quarterbacking it. Had generally a pretty good game defensively as well, and just stepping in for Dunn, still now 12 games into his NHL career, playing over 25 minutes of ice time the night before, and another 23 or almost 23 minutes, which led Kraken defensemen in this game tonight. So Evans certainly getting the ice time, leading all Kraken defensemen in ice time in this game. And I think he's well deserving of that, not only because, I mean, he has to fill in for Dunn, who's also going to get a ton of ice time when he's on the ice, but just in general, Evans has continued to play well when given whatever opportunity he's given. And now he's given a pretty big role there alongside Larson on the top pair and is really taking advantage of it. So even though he doesn't get on the scoring sheet, I do think that he played well worthy, given the role that he's stepping into, of getting that third star. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below, though, who your Kraken 3 stars of the game would be, what you thought of this game. Obviously, it's a bummer, a third loss in a row, and it would have been very nice to beat the Oilers and snap that winning streak. That would have been a lot of fun. Unfortunately, it just doesn't quite happen for the Kraken. Obviously, get a bit unlucky with that offside from Yamamoto. And yeah, tough game for the Kraken, but at least things seem to be headed in the right direction, and now they're coming home with some rest, which also should help things out. Hopefully, they can at least get illness-wise back to health, whether or not injury-wise they're back healthy by that time they play the Leafs. We'll have to wait and see. Until then, though, if you have made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy the video, the buttons, that kind of stuff down below for the channel. Until next time, which will be that game against the Leafs, the power rankings, because that game is on Sunday night, the power rankings, if you're around for those as well, will be pushed back to, well, film them on Monday, but they'll be released on Tuesday, so a day later with the Kraken playing on Sunday. Either way, until either one of those videos, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken.